This building of the Boys and Girls Institute, which was built from about 1915 on, had a swimming pool in it, and that was the main connection that I had with it. My name is Peter Cook. I'm a resident of Mount Cook. I've been here for 33 years. I got involved in Mount Cook mobilised the residents group through a development which was going to happen at the site of the Boys and Girls Institute on Tasman Street. We were aware that a supermarket chain was planning to build a supermarket there, and the first one they were proposing was going to have something like 250 car parks on it. And we thought that was too much for a little quiet, side street, what Tasman Street appeared to us to be. So we formed the group and, tried a little bit of public lobbying to have a comment on that supermarket, not necessarily to stop it, but to try and downsize things. We were also very worried about a development at Buckle Street, where the current Pukeahu National War Memorial Park was built. And it's because the park's happened and it's okay, whereas the BGI is still quite unsatisfactory.
I became aware of the BGI building's fate when a few Mount Cook residents were getting together to have a public meeting about it. And one of the initiatives out of that was one of the people started a petition to sort of save the facade and I think have some greenery there and perhaps try and keep the swimming school, because the swimming school was really popular and really busy. And so we spent, 6 weeks or something getting signatures on the petition, and I think we had about 1,900 signatures. It was quite a few. Not only the swimming pool was lost, it was also the YMCA next door, which is quite a big, useful facility. In fact, that's where we had our meeting with 200 people. The thing that came to our notice is that we didn't, unlike other suburbs, we didn't actually have any community centre or anything like that where people could meet each other and do things and hire spaces and all of those sorts of things that people do at community centres. So we suddenly thought, uh-oh, YMCA and BGI, they are our community centre and they're going to be bold. So it was a bit of a shock, really.
We certainly want as much of it that has survived to be preserved. Of course, it's only a shadow of its former self. There were actually two pools there. The main one you come into was built at the beginning when the building was new in the 19-teens. But there was a smaller swimming pool added later on for kids, a small shallow pool added at the back of the existing pool, a separate little pool, and that's where my kids learned to swim. Used to have 3 more stories on the top and be much deeper than it is now because of the depth of those 2 swimming pools that were there. So it's really only about a quarter of its original size, if not less. There were rooms upstairs. I don't think I've ever been to those. A lovely ornate staircase at the front of the building going up to the upstairs level. But of course it was demolished and the swimming pool taken out when it changed hands after the supermarket owners, in fact, and it's now currently owned by the Chinese government, who are planning to put an embassy there. But the front facade is a lovely Edwardian style, the upper story of the 2. There's lots of lovely decorative elements to it which make it an interesting thing to look at. And there are some great stories associated with it, which of course all heritage buildings need. So retention of that building and the stories that go with it is of course important.
That's a very old area of Mount Cook, and that's a really important story about the boys who used to come and they used to stay there, and they had a gym there, they used to work out, and then they used to go and do work, and it's important. So we're pleased that we've saved the facade for that reason, although it's just been sitting there doing not much for the last 10 years. With the Chinese government now owning the land, we really don't know whether it'll stay, and so far we haven't had an avenue in to talk to them about it. but we're still hoping that we'll be able to do that. I mean, we hear that something's being designed for that space.
Well, I don't think we can call the fact that we've got an empty section unused and unloved and covered in graffiti being a very good outcome. But you know, until there is some development there, be it a Chinese embassy, which we don't object to at all, they'd be very good neighbours. We think the representatives of the People's Liberation Army would have a great effect on graffitiing around the place. But you know, at the moment there's nothing, and that's what we don't like. We don't like the fact there's an empty section there.
Not many people realise that foodstuff slowly acquired all the land quietly around it for, you know, millions of dollars. They basically said, yep, we're going to close it down. Said to the swimming school, yeah, you've got a few more years until we do something with it. In the meantime, that section has basically, only into the last 2 years, it sat open. A lot of dust and commando gardens, it's just overgrown, and a lot of people just wandering around in there. In recent times, graffiti artists and squatters have been living in the building and really creating a mess. And then just over 2 years ago, they fenced it. I thought it was actually a good idea, but it's actually now, in the last 6 months, it's now turned the place into sort of like a private little playground for people to graffiti, throw things, litter. Also, there are just the so-called local alcoholics who walk around, who know that that's a building that you can go and possibly hang out. And in recent times, there has been a few drug deals being done there, so that's not good for the communities. The council could possibly step in and actually insist that the Chinese government do something with it sooner than later, because, you know, it's just not a good look for the community. That has the potential. It could be, you know, apartments or something that the community can use if they were just to level the land, put grass on it. Even if it sat there for 10 years, the community would get some use out of it. Unfortunately, you know, it's owned by the Chinese government, and until they come up with some plan which hopefully keeps everyone happy, we'll just have to wait. We'll just have to wait and see that they have, well, similar aspirations to us.
So we've looked at the suburb from not only a place where we live and where we've brought up our kids, but where, you know, we want to make sure it's good for everybody else. So we've sort of a broader interest in the place. As a historian and done work professionally in the heritage area, you've got to know where you come from in order to know who you are and where you're going. So knowledge of our past is vital. You know, it helps us understand who we are, and, you know, a city which is becoming much more multicultural. You know, we need to know that there are influences from all over, so just vital that those stories get cemented in place.